Visual. Close-up of Japanese soldiers in trenches, expressions of fear and confusion. Every casualty hardened Marine resolve, every advance reinforced momentum, and every island captured cemented a legend that terrified those who would face them next. The combination of courage, adaptability, tactical brilliance, and unrelenting aggression created a force that could turn mistakes into advantages, improvise under fire, and maintain cohesion where ordinary soldiers would falter. Even veteran Japanese officers noted pervasive dread, hesitation, and doubt spreading through their units, altering strategies and forcing retreats that might otherwise have been avoidable. Across the Pacific campaigns, the Marines' reputation spread like wildfire, whispered in fear by soldiers who had survived one landing only to face another, each island a testament to a relentless enemy. Visual. Aerial shots of coral beaches, pillboxes, and jungle fortifications. The Pacific theater became a crucible where endurance, mental fortitude, and tactical skill collided. Diaries recount soldiers frozen by fear, officers forced to adapt strategies on the fly, and units demoralized by the realization that their opponent would neither retreat nor surrender. The Marines' ethos, Semper Fi, became a psychological weapon, a symbol of unwavering courage and unyielding aggression. From the first landing craft crashing onto coral-strewn shores to the final bunker stormed under volcanic cliffs, Marines redefined amphibious warfare, combining strategy, coordination, and raw courage in ways that Japanese soldiers had never anticipated. Visual. Smoke rising from a destroyed Japanese fortification, Marines advancing. Every engagement tested mental and physical limits. The Marines' victories were measured not only in captured positions, but in the indelible psychological impact on the enemy, hesitation, fear, and the realization that they were facing an opponent unlike any other. Even when heavily outnumbered or outgunned, Marines improvised and pressed forward, creating the impression of an unstoppable, almost supernatural force that eroded confidence and morale with each encounter. Visual. Soldiers' journals, maps, and diagrams overlaid with battle reenactments. The legend of the Marines was cemented in every battle, from early landings in the Solomons to the bloody sands of Iwo Jima. Survivors' accounts describe relentless advances, improvisation under fire, and an unbreakable fighting spirit that inspired both awe and terror. Officers documented the hesitation, doubt, and fear that spread through ranks, often deciding the outcome as much as strategy or weaponry. Each island captured reinforced the psychological edge, as the Marines' determination, adaptability, and discipline overwhelmed both physical defenses and morale. Visual. Dramatic slow motion of Marines raising flags, symbolic of victory and persistence. The Pacific campaigns became as much a war of the mind as of weapons. Fear, respect, and admiration intertwined as Japanese soldiers faced opponents who endured disease, heat, shellfire, and exhaustion without faltering, turning impossible situations into tactical advantage. Their ethos of relentless determination, adaptability, and tactical precision left Japanese forces shaken, demoralized, and forever wary. From the first landing to the last assault, Marines created a standard of warfare defined not just by victories, but by the psychological imprint left on every opponent, a mark of fear, awe, and enduring legacy. Visual. Sunset over Pacific Islands, smoke from battle slowly clearing, Marines standing vigilant. The legend of the U.S. Marines in the Pacific, born of courage, strategy, and unyielding spirit, demonstrates that determination and adaptability can overcome even the most disciplined and formidable enemy. Their story is one of endurance, psychological mastery, and relentless pursuit of victory, leaving behind not only captured islands, but also a permanent impression on history. Every soldier who faced them remembered the terror and awe, and every island captured added to the legacy of fear, respect, and unmatched prowess. In this crucible of battle, the Marines became a force feared above all others, a symbol of unyielding courage, tactical brilliance, and relentless spirit, forging a legend that would echo through generations and redefine the very concept of warfare in the Pacific. Map of the Pacific Ocean, highlighting key islands: Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Peleliu, Iwo Jima. By mid-1942, the Pacific Theater had become the most brutal and strategically complex arena of World War II, stretching thousands of miles across the ocean, dotted with islands that were key to controlling supply lines, airfields, and naval dominance. Japanese forces, having advanced rapidly in 1941–42, had fortified many islands with a combination of natural terrain and man-made defenses, creating a network of heavily armed garrisons intended to repel any Allied invasion. These islands, often volcanic, coral-strewn, and densely forested, were selected for their strategic value and natural defensive advantages, with cliffs, reefs, jungles, and swamps forming the first line of defense. Japanese military planners relied heavily on disciplined soldiers, entrenched positions, minefields, barbed wire, machine gun nests, artillery emplacements, and underground bunkers, creating layers of defense designed to force attacking forces into attritional battles. The defenders were well-trained in jungle warfare, bayonet combat, and the psychological warfare of intimidation, and they were often prepared to fight to the death rather than surrender, adhering to a strict code of honor that demanded absolute loyalty and sacrifice. Visual: Japanese soldiers digging trenches, setting up barbed wire and minefields. On Guadalcanal, the Japanese had fortified Henderson Field with artillery, anti-aircraft guns, machine gun positions, and bunkers, expecting a conventional assault that could be repelled through attrition. Tarawa, a small atoll in the Gilbert Islands, was transformed into a fortress with interlocking fields of fire covering coral beaches, a labyrinth of bunkers, pillboxes, and reinforced positions designed to... On Saipan, Japanese planners used the island's rugged volcanic ridges to hide artillery and troops, creating choke points where attackers could be funneled into kill zones. Iwo Jima, perhaps the most famous of the Pacific Islands, was fortified with an elaborate network of tunnels, caves, and underground bunkers capable of withstanding prolonged bombardment and designed to allow defenders to fight from cover until their last breath. Each island presented unique challenges. Coral reefs at Tarawa made landing craft vulnerable. Dense jungle on Guadalcanal slowed advances and masked ambushes. Volcanic ridges on Saipan and Iwo Jima created natural defensive choke points, while limited water, heat, and disease tested both attackers and defenders. Visual: Archival footage of Japanese soldiers preparing defenses, stockpiling ammunition, and coordinating. Japanese forces on these islands were not homogeneous. Garrisons varied in size, often numbering from several hundred to over 20,000 troops, depending on the island and its strategic importance. Commanders, often seasoned officers, coordinated defensive positions with limited communication lines, relying on pre-planned strategies that assumed attackers would follow predictable tactics. Soldiers were disciplined, indoctrinated, and prepared for extreme conditions, yet they were facing an enemy, the U.S. Marines, whose operational doctrine emphasized flexibility, adaptability, and relentless assault. Marines studied intelligence reports, aerial reconnaissance, and captured documents to prepare for these assaults, understanding that success would require not only firepower but also innovation, coordination between naval and ground forces, and extraordinary endurance. Visual: Marines studying maps, planning amphibious landings, rehearsal on beaches. For each landing, U.S. Marines deployed in waves, with Higgins boats and LCVPs carrying troops through reefs and surf, under constant threat from artillery, machine gun fire, and natural obstacles. Naval gunfire and aerial bombardments were used to soften defenses, but planners knew that entrenched positions, reinforced bunkers, and tunnels could survive days of bombardment, making infantry assaults inevitable and extremely dangerous. Intelligence teams worked tirelessly to map enemy positions, identify kill zones, and plan flanking maneuvers, knowing that hesitation or miscalculation could result in catastrophic losses. Training exercises, simulations, and rehearsals became critical, teaching Marines how to wade through reefs, cross mud and swamp, navigate dense jungle, and approach fortified positions under fire. Visual: Marines landing on beaches under heavy fire, moving through obstacles, taking cover. The Japanese defensive mindset relied heavily on attrition. Every inch of ground gained by the enemy would cost immense casualties, sapping morale and slowing the advance. Machine gun nests, bunkers, and artillery were strategically placed to create overlapping fields of fire, forcing attackers into kill zones. Mines, barbed wire, and natural obstacles further complicated landings. Soldiers were trained to fight to the death, creating psychological pressure on attackers who knew that every encounter could be lethal. The Marines faced this head-on, leveraging small unit tactics, flamethrowers, grenades, and close-quarters combat to neutralize positions methodically while minimizing exposure. Visual: aerial shots of coral reefs, trenches, pillboxes, and artillery placements. The scale of preparation was staggering. Tarawa, for example, had a garrison of roughly 4,500 Japanese soldiers defending a tiny atoll measuring only 2 square. Guadalcanal had a garrison of several thousand troops spread across jungles and airfields, with artillery and machine guns covering key approaches. Saipan and Iwo Jima had tens of thousands of troops entrenched in networks of tunnels and caves, creating layered defenses that would challenge Marines at every step. Despite their discipline and courage, Japanese forces faced an enemy who combined overwhelming coordination, adaptability, and sheer tenacity, a psychological and physical challenge unlike any other. Visual: Marines advancing under fire, taking cover, using flamethrowers to clear bunkers. The Marines studied each island meticulously, identifying approaches, natural choke points, and enemy weaknesses. Assault plans were flexible, designed to adjust in real time to enemy tactics, terrain obstacles, and weather conditions. Naval bombardments and aerial attacks preceded landings, but Marines knew that entrenched bunkers, tunnels, and reinforced positions could survive weeks of shelling. Each landing required meticulous timing, courage under fire, and the ability to improvise when plans failed. In many cases, sunrise over a heavily fortified island, waves crashing on the shore. The day of the assault began before dawn, as the first waves of U.S. Marines approached the coral-strewn beaches under the cover of darkness, tension thick in the humid air. Japanese defenders, concealed in bunkers, pillboxes, and hidden trenches, awaited with anticipation, their machine guns and artillery poised to cut down anyone who dared set foot on the sand. Yet, as the landing craft hit the reef, the Marines surged forward with precision, wading through the surf, bullets tearing the air around them, shouts mingling with the roar of artillery and naval gunfire. From the very first moment, it was clear that these were not ordinary soldiers. They were trained to endure, to improvise, to adapt under fire, and to press relentlessly against a fortified enemy, no matter the cost. Visual: close-up of Marines advancing under fire, using cover, throwing grenades into bunkers. At Tarawa, a tiny atoll defended by thousands of Japanese troops, the beaches were littered with obstacles, barbed wire, mines, and coral formations that slowed every step. Machine gun nests created overlapping fields of fire, cutting down the first waves of attackers. Yet, Marines adapted instantly, using flamethrowers to clear bunkers, grenades to neutralize pillboxes, and hand-to-hand combat when necessary. Every inch of ground was contested, and every victory required bravery beyond imagination. The Japanese soldiers, disciplined and determined, fought ferociously, but they were facing opponents whose strategy was fluid, whose morale was unbreakable, and whose determination seemed inexhaustible. Visual: Marines scaling cliffs under fire. Japanese artillery firing from hidden positions. On Saipan, volcanic ridges provided natural defensive advantages for sunrise over a heavily fortified island, waves crashing on the shore. The day of the assault began before dawn, as the first waves of U.S. Marines approached the coral-strewn beaches under the cover of darkness, tension thick in the humid air. Japanese defenders, concealed in bunkers, pillboxes, and hidden trenches, awaited with anticipation, their machine guns and artillery poised to cut down anyone who dared set foot on the sand. Yet, as the landing craft hit the reef, the Marines surged forward with precision, wading through the surf, bullets tearing the air around them, shouts mingling with the roar of artillery and naval gunfire. From the very first moment, it was clear that these were not ordinary soldiers. They were trained to endure, to improvise, to adapt under fire, and to press relentlessly against a fortified enemy, no matter the cost. Visual: close-up of Marines advancing under fire, using cover, throwing grenades into bunkers. At Tarawa, a tiny atoll defended by thousands of Japanese troops, the beaches were littered with obstacles, barbed wire, mines, and coral formations that slowed every step. Machine gun nests created overlapping fields of fire, cutting down the first waves of attackers. Yet, Marines adapted instantly, using flamethrowers to clear bunkers, grenades to neutralize pillboxes, and hand-to-hand combat when necessary. Every inch of ground was contested, and every victory required bravery beyond imagination. The Japanese soldiers, disciplined and determined, fought ferociously, but they were facing opponents whose strategy was fluid, whose morale was unbreakable, and whose determination seemed inexhaustible. Visual: Marines scaling cliffs under fire. Japanese artillery firing from hidden positions. On Saipan, volcanic ridges provided natural defensive advantages for Japanese troops, yet the Marines pressed forward, coordinating artillery. Letters and diaries from Japanese soldiers convey fear, frustration, and awe, describing Marines as ghosts that could not be killed, demons who never retreated, and unstoppable forces who adapted to every obstacle. These accounts reveal that the Marines' reputation was built not only on physical courage, but on a relentless psychological edge that left defenders demoralized and disoriented. Visual: Marines carrying wounded comrades under fire, medics treating soldiers on the beach. Heroism on both sides added to the drama. Marines carried wounded comrades through heavy fire, risking their lives to save others, exemplifying courage that inspired fear and admiration simultaneously. Japanese soldiers, despite dwindling ammunition and collapsing defenses, fought with determination, executing ambushes, counterattacks, and suicide charges that inflicted further casualties. The battlefield was a crucible of human endurance, testing physical, mental, and emotional limits beyond what most had imagined possible. Visual: nightfall, explosions in the distance, Marines digging in for the next assault. As each day passed, the battles intensified. Marines adapted to every defensive innovation, every hidden trench, and every sniper's nest. Small unit tactics, quick decision-making, and improvisation became hallmarks of their operations. Japanese strategies, dependent on fortifications and attrition, struggled against a force that combined coordination, adaptability, and sheer determination. Each island became a proving ground, and each victory reinforced the legend of the Marines' unstoppable spirit. Visual: overhead view of islands, battle aftermath, smoke rising, Marines regrouping. By the end of each campaign, whether it was Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, or Iwo Jima, the evidence was clear: Japanese soldiers feared the U.S. Marines more than any other allied force. Their combination of physical courage, mental toughness, adaptability, and unyielding resolve created a psychological and tactical advantage unmatched in the Pacific theater. The core drama of each battle was not only the destruction of fortifications or the capture of territory, but the breaking of will, the imposition of fear, and the demonstration that relentless, well-coordinated action could overcome even the most disciplined and prepared enemy. Visual: Marines advancing, Japanese soldiers retreating, final shots of victory flags and exhausted troops. The Pacific War was a series of brutal tests, a battle of attrition and strategy, endurance and innovation. Each engagement revealed the relentless efficiency, courage, and tactical brilliance of the Marines, and each Japanese defeat reinforced their fear. The combination of strategy, psychological dominance, and physical endurance solidified a reputation that became legendary, feared across the islands, remembered in every soldier's diary, and immortalized in history. The court drama of the Pacific was a testament to unyielding courage, innovation under fire, and the relentless pursuit of victory. A story of human endurance and tactical mastery that transformed the course of the war and instilled a lasting legacy of dense jungle, smoke rising, hidden Japanese positions. Just when the Marines believed they had gained momentum, the Pacific Islands revealed another layer of danger, unseen, unpredictable, and lethal. Japanese commanders had anticipated conventional tactics, but their ingenuity in creating underground tunnels, hidden bunkers, and surprise ambushes turned each advance into a deadly puzzle. As Marines pressed forward, they often discovered that positions they thought secured were mere decoys, designed to lure attackers into crossfire. The terrain itself, dense jungle, jagged cliffs, coral reefs, and volcanic ridges, became an active participant in the battle, shaping every movement, slowing advances, and creating deadly surprises. Each step forward demanded constant vigilance, improvisation, and courage under fire, as unseen bullets, booby traps, and sudden explosions tested every Marine's resolve. Visual: Marines navigating booby traps, caves, and tunnels. On Guadalcanal, after initial victories, Marines encountered extensive cave networks hidden within volcanic rock and jungle slopes. Japanese defenders emerged unpredictably, attacking with hand grenades, mortars, and rifle fire before vanishing into the darkness. These unexpected threats forced Marines to adapt instantaneously, coordinating small unit tactics and improvised assaults in confined spaces where conventional strategies failed. Close-quarters combat became routine, with every bunker, tunnel, or cave a potential death trap. The psychological toll was immense. Soldiers knew that each movement could be their last, yet they advanced with unbroken determination. Heroism emerged in the form of Marines who carried wounded comrades under fire, cleared enemy positions at immense personal risk, and inspired their units to continue even when nature itself played a formidable role. Torrential rains turned trenches into mud pits, obscured visibility, and complicated logistics. Coral reefs tore landing craft, while dense jungle slowed reinforcements and disrupted supply lines. Yet the Marines adapted, using reconnaissance teams to navigate hazards, coordinating naval bombardment to suppress hidden positions, and improvising with local terrain to outflank enemy defenses. On Saipan and Iwo Jima, volcanic ridges and lava fields forced soldiers into narrow passes where Japanese forces launched ambushes. Casualties mounted, yet every Marine pressed forward, demonstrating resilience and adaptability that confounded their enemies. Visual: close-up of Japanese soldiers in tunnels, sudden grenade attacks, Marines responding. The human cost was staggering. In every battle, Marines faced relentless fire, traps, and the knowledge that retreat was not an option. The unexpected intensity of Japanese resistance, combined with natural hazards, forced units to innovate in real time. Coordinated assaults, fire and maneuver tactics, flamethrowers for bunker clearance, and precise artillery coordination became essential. Heroic actions, charging a fortified position alone, carrying comrades to safety, or neutralizing a hidden sniper, turned the tide in crucial moments. Every success came at the price of immense bravery and sacrifice, and each twist in the battle tested the limits of endurance, courage, and tactical ingenuity. Visual: aerial view of heavily contested beaches, explosions, and Marines advancing. Unexpected reversals also came from logistical challenges. Supplies were delayed, medical evacuations were complicated by terrain, and communication lines were Despite these challenges, the Marines' training, adaptability, and unwavering discipline allowed them to turn setbacks into opportunities. Every ambush neutralized, every tunnel cleared, and every ridge captured reinforced their reputation as a relentless, adaptable, and unstoppable force. Visual: Marines raising flags on captured positions, Japanese soldiers regrouping. Perhaps the most striking twist was the psychological effect on the Japanese defenders. Their elaborate defenses, once considered impregnable, were systematically dismantled by a combination of ingenuity, courage, and relentless assault. Units that had hoped to hold positions for days found themselves overwhelmed by Marines who adapted to every tactic, anticipated ambushes, and pressed relentlessly. The fear and demoralization that spread through enemy ranks amplified the impact of every tactical success, showing that the psychological dimension of warfare could be as decisive as firepower. Visual: Marines advancing under heavy fire, medics treating casualties, nightfall over the battlefield. Heroism continued to emerge in unexpected forms. In the chaos of night assaults, Marines coordinated movements silently, guided others through treacherous terrain, and risked life and limb to achieve objectives. Acts of courage, from saving wounded comrades to neutralizing critical enemy positions, created moments of decisive advantage. Japanese defenders, despite training and preparation, were consistently surprised by the Marines' initiative, adaptability, and ability to exploit even minor errors in defensive planning. Visual: Smoke-filled battlefield, Marines regrouping, supplies being delivered under fire. By the end of each campaign, it became clear that the Marines' ability to confront the unexpected. Japanese soldiers who had expected predictable assaults were repeatedly confronted with tactics that defied their expectations, forcing them into reactive positions and sowing fear. Every unexpected twist, ambush, and challenge only reinforced the Marines' reputation as the most feared Allied force in the Pacific. Visual: Sunset over islands, Marines standing vigilant, flags waving in victory. The twists and turns of these battles demonstrate that warfare is never static. It is unpredictable, chaotic, and brutally demanding. Success depends not only on preparation, but also on the ability to respond to unforeseen challenges, act decisively, and maintain cohesion under extreme stress. In the Pacific theater, the U.S. Marines exemplified this principle, turning every unexpected obstacle into an opportunity for heroism, tactical advantage, and psychological dominance. The result was a legacy of fear, respect, and admiration that would endure long after the battles ended, leaving Japanese soldiers shaken, demoralized, and deeply aware of the relentless, adaptive, and unstoppable nature of the Marines they faced. Sunset over a Pacific island, waves crashing, smoke from previous battles fading. As the smoke cleared from the last islands conquered in the Pacific theater, a profound truth became undeniable. The U.S. Marines had redefined warfare. They were not merely soldiers, they were a psychological force, a relentless engine of courage and adaptability that struck fear into the hearts of even the most disciplined Japanese units. Their reputation was forged in blood, sweat, and unwavering determination. Every island captured, every bunker stormed, and every ridge secured left an indelible mark on the annals of military history, and the soldiers who faced them remembered the terror and awe in equal measure. Visual: close-up of Marines' faces, weary but determined, raising the flag. The legacy of fear was not built solely on firepower. It emerged from the unbreakable discipline, cohesion, and adaptability of small units. Japanese soldiers, trained for decades in tactics, strategy, and unyielding resistance, found themselves outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and overwhelmed by Marines who thought and adapted faster, exploited every weakness, and pressed relentlessly. no matter the cost. Letters, diaries, and post-war interviews confirm that hesitation, doubt, and fear spread among Japanese defenders before and during assaults, weakening their resolve and influencing command decisions. The Marines' approach was surgical, yet brutal, calculated to neutralize threats while maintaining relentless momentum. Visual: aerial shots of destroyed bunkers, smoke rising, Marines moving through jungle. Every victory came at a staggering cost. Casualties mounted, terrain proved unforgiving, and disease, heat, and exhaustion tested every Marine to their limits. Yet, the combination of physical endurance, mental fortitude, and tactical brilliance allowed them to prevail. Heroism emerged at every level, individual Marines risking life, and each battle was a testament to the Marines' ability to turn obstacles into advantages, setbacks into momentum, and fear into fuel for action. Visual: soldiers helping each other, medics tending wounded, nightfall over a battlefield. For Japanese forces, the experience was harrowing. The combination of relentless assaults, unpredictable tactics, and psychological dominance created fear that compounded physical losses. Strategic errors were magnified under the pressure of Marines who adapted instantly, and even the most fortified positions became vulnerable under sustained, innovative attacks. Survivors' accounts reveal that the terror was not merely of bullets and bombs, it was the relentless pursuit, the refusal to retreat, and the uncanny ability to overcome impossible odds that defined the Marines in battle. Visual: Marines raising flags on multiple islands, aerial view of Pacific Islands, waves crashing. The broader lesson of the Pacific campaigns extends beyond tactics and terrain. It is a story of human endurance, courage, and the power of adaptability in the face of overwhelming adversity. Every landing, every island, every engagement was a crucible, testing the limits of soldiers' physical and psychological resilience. The Marines' ability to innovate under fire, maintain cohesion, and exploit weaknesses transformed the course of battles and instilled a lasting legacy of fear, respect, and awe among enemies and allies alike. Visual: close-up of Japanese soldiers. The legacy of fear was compounded by the realization that the Marines could endure unimaginable hardships, think strategically under extreme stress, and strike decisively in the most desperate circumstances. Visual: veterans reunions, historical reflections, flags waving, Pacific sunsets. In retrospect, the Pacific Theater serves as a testament to the Marines' ability to combine human courage, adaptability, and relentless aggression to achieve strategic objectives. Every obstacle encountered, every ambush survived, and every victory achieved reinforced a psychological advantage that would echo long after the war ended. Historians, military analysts, and survivors recognize that the Marines' legend was not born overnight. It was forged through rigorous training, extraordinary courage, and repeated trials that tested both mind and body. Visual: slow motion of Marines marching, smoke and fire in the background, silhouettes against the sunset. The final chapter of the Pacific Campaign is as much about the human spirit as it is about military might. The combination of endurance, ingenuity, and unyielding will created a force that Japanese soldiers feared above all others. The psychological imprint left by these relentless fighters reshaped the strategies, expectations, and morale of every adversary who faced them. Each battle, each island, and each engagement added to a cumulative legend of unbroken courage and tactical mastery that remains a defining feature of modern military history. The Marines' legacy is a reminder that courage, innovation, and relentless resolve can turn the tide of war, inspire awe, and leave a lasting impression on those who face them. It is a lesson in fear and respect, strategy and bravery, and above all, the unbreakable spirit of soldiers who refuse to yield, no matter the cost. Visual: fade out with waves crashing, flags flying, Marines standing in silence. As history looks back, the fear inspired by the Marines is etched in every island they captured, every bunker they stormed, and every soldier who faced them. Their story is a legend of endurance, psychological mastery, and relentless determination, an enduring reminder that in the crucible of the Pacific, courage, adaptability, and tenacity were the ultimate weapons, shaping the course of war and leaving a legacy that will never be forgotten.